Okay, let's dive right in. Picture this. You're strapped into a Soyuz rocket, sitting on, 280 tons of propellant?
Yeah, highly explosive stuff.
And Paul McCartney is singing Killing Me Softly over the comms. I mean, talk about surreal.
It really sets a scene, doesn't it?
Welcome, everyone. We're going deep into one astronaut's very personal account of launching on a Soyuz and those first kind of overwhelming moments arriving at the International Space Station.
And what's really great about these excerpts is how personal they feel. This isn't the official mission report. It's raw.
Right. It's the human experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to pull out the most striking bits, the key moments from this account, to give you a vivid sense of, leaving the planet and adjusting to orbit.
We're going from those strange pre-launch rituals right through to docking, weightlessness, the whole thing. So let's start on the launch pad. At night. It sounds like a really unusual atmosphere.
It really does. The music, for one, Coldplay, Springsteen, Roberta Flack, while you're being secured into this incredibly powerful machine, it's almost mundane against the danger.
A coping mechanism, maybe?
Probably. And then the Soyuz itself under floodlights, huge, with that eerie condensation billowing off because the fuel is so incredibly cold. It's majestic, but also unsettling.
And here's something that really jumped out at me. The number of people just milling around the launch pad.
Yeah, that's quite different from NASA protocols.
Totally different. Kennedy Space Center has like a 3-mile clear zone, right? But here you've got dozens of people apparently even smoking nearby.
It's a striking contrast, and it does make you think about the history, like that terrible Netherlands catastrophe in 1960.
Which was covered up initially.
Right. It perhaps points to different historical approaches to safety culture and maybe transparency influenced by different political contexts,
The Cold War secrecy versus maybe NASA's more public-facing approach, especially after incidents like Apollo 1.
Possibly. Different pressures, different organizational cultures, shaping how risk was perceived and managed.
Yet even with all that, there's this very human moment. The astronaut and the crewmates, Gennady and Misha, turning for that final wave goodbye to the crowd.
It's tradition, but it's also powerful. That connection back to Earth, to people, right before they leave.
Okay, so now they're inside the Soyuz.
Wow.
Countdown. And it's tight.
Extremely tight. The astronaut mentions knowing their knees are going to hurt. Comfort isn't really part of the equation at this stage.
Space travel glamour, right. And they have jobs to do even then.
Oh, yeah. Our astronaut is flight engineer, too. Checking comms, introducing oxygen into the cabin. Focusing on the tasks probably helps manage the anticipation.
And amidst the technical checks, you get these little bits of Russian chatter.
Yeah, ignition, dinner, oxygen, and apparently a fairly common Russian swear word pops up too.
Keeps it real, I suppose. It makes the crew seem less like superheroes and more like, people in a really intense situation.
Absolutely. Just snippets of normal conversation under extreme pressure.
The music changes too. Time to say goodbye. Which is a bit ironic, given Sarah Brightman never made her trip.
Yeah, funny coincidence. Then Aviator. Almost feels like a curated launch playlist.
And then a very serious moment, the activation of the launch escape system. That loud thunk.
That's the safety net. It's designed to pull the capsule clear if the rocket fails catastrophically on the pad or early in ascent.
And it's not just theoretical, right? It
Right.
saved a crew back in '83.
It did. A very real reminder of the stakes involved, but also of the safety systems that are built in.
Now, here's another difference from, say, shuttle launches. No big, dramatic countdown clock for the Soyuz.
Right, and the astronaut notes the reliability factor. Apparently, no Soyuz launch has been scrubbed after crew ingress since 1969.
Wow, that's an incredible record compared to the shuttle's delays. Why do you think the Soyuz is so reliable in that sense?
Well, it's a very mature design. It's been refined over decades, many, many flights. Perhaps the decision-making process for launch commit is also maybe more streamlined than the multi-layered reviews common in the shuttle era.
Simpler, maybe more focused.
Could be. Fewer variables sometimes leads to more predictable outcomes.
And then just before it all kicks off, Gennady says, "My Gotovi."
We are ready. Simple words, but carrying enormous weight, the culmination of everything.
Then, Zazagane, ignition.
The engines roar to life, but they don't lift off immediately.
No, they just sit there rumbling. That must feel strange.
It's part of the process. They burn off some propellant first, adjusting the thrust-to-weight ratio until it's right for liftoff. Those few seconds must feel incredibly long.
And then the liftoff. The kick in the pants.
The massive acceleration from 0 to supersonic in about a minute. It's this incredible force pushing them upwards.
You described the G-forces earlier pressing you back, making it hard to breathe.
Exactly. Several times your body weight. It's physically demanding. But the astronaut also uses the word addictive, that intensity, that power.
The unique sensation, for sure. And inside, it's dark because of the fairing covering the capsule.
Right. No you outside yet. And it's loud. They're sweating in the suits, visors fogging up.
Making it hard to even read checklists.
Yeah, it's sensory overload in a very confined space. Not exactly comfortable.
2 minutes in, the four-side booster's separate.
A big milestone. You lose that weight, and the core stage pushes even harder. They hit about 3 Gs then.
That's a serious force. Then the fairing comes off.
And that's the first view outside since they got strapped in.
Yeah.
But it's just blackness.
Wow. Instant confirmation. You are definitely not in Kansas anymore.
Pretty much. A very stark reminder of the environment they're entering.
The ride gets rougher again during the staging to the third stage.
Yeah, the astronaut describes being thrown forward, then slammed back. Staging events can be quite dynamic, and some roll oscillations as the flight control system stabilizes the vehicle.
Sounds like a bit of a roller coaster.
An extremely powerful one.
And then finally, Mako. Main engine cutoff.
The last engine shuts down. The astronaut describes it as a bang and a jolt like a small car crash. And then silence.
Instant weightlessness.
Instantly. And that floating snowman talisman confirms it. The transition from immense force to complete freefall. It's profound.
And the first surprise in orbit.
The lack of floating debris, or FOD, foreign object debris.
Right, you'd expect little things held down by gravity to start floating after Mako.
Exactly. But the capsule was remarkably clean. The astronaut was impressed, especially given maybe less strict ground procedures observed earlier. It suggests a strong focus on in-flight cleanliness.
Which is critical for safety. Then the solar arrays deploy, antennas pop out.
And suddenly it's a fully functional spacecraft. A big sigh of relief, probably.
But then they open their helmets.
And are hit by this wall of sound. Fans, pumps, constant, overwhelming noise. So loud they can barely hear each other talk initially.
How do people cope with that long term?
It's an adaptation process. You habituate to some extent, but it can still affect sleep and concentration. Noise-canceling tech helps, and trying to keep crew quarters quieter.
But that initial realization, this noise is their life for a year?
Yeah, the crew's reactions don't remind me totally screwed are pretty telling. It's one of those constant environmental stressors of long-duration flight. Humor helps, clearly.
Okay, so spacecraft is good, crew is okay, but noisy. Now they need to get to the ISS, rendezvous time.
A complex orbital dance to match velocity and position with the station.
And more weirdness, they start picking up an airport broadcast over Europe.
Apparently so. The astronaut mentions the Soyuz comms aren't top-tier, prone to interference, even from cell phones back at Russian mission control.
Not ideal during a critical approach.
Definitely not. As a layer of unexpected challenge to managing communications.
And physically, the astronaut's still feeling it. Congestion, leg cramps.
Yeah, the body is still adjusting to microgravity. Fluid shifts upwards cause that stuffy feeling, and aches don't just vanish. Plus, the Soyuz orbital module is small. Not much room to stretch out even after unstrapping.
Then, a major alarm.
The docking probe, it fails to deploy on command.
That's bad.
Very bad. The probe is essential for the initial capture by the ISS docking port. Without it, they can't dock.
So they might have to abort. Go home.
That becomes a real possibility. Tense communications with the ground, static, you can imagine the stress levels spiking. After going through launch, facing a return to Earth without docking.
Yeah, terrifying.
Especially since this docking system is usually so reliable. 50 years, the astronaut says.
Makes the failure even more shocking, that shared look of disbelief between the crew members. It says it all.
But just as things look really grim.
It turns out to be a software issue. A software funny, as they call it.
A glitch. Seriously. What stops that normally? There's tons of testing, redundancy, code verification, but complex systems can still have unexpected bugs. The key is having procedures to diagnose and hopefully work around them, which they managed here. The probe deployed.
Phew. Okay, crisis averted. So the final approach, it's automated on the Soyuz.
Yes. Unlike the shuttle, which was typically flown manually for docking, the Soyuz system uses sensors and thrusters to automatically align and close in.
The astronaut mentions it whipping around quite fast for adjustments near the end.
It needs to make precise corrections. Then suddenly the ISS looms large in the window. A welcome sight, especially after the probe scare.
And then contact, that sound,
Yeah.
the probe hitting the drogue, that cone thing on the station.
Scratching its way in, then that satisfying clunk. That's the soft dock, the initial capture.
And they free drift.
Yeah, for a short period, letting the relative motion damp out before the main hooks engage to pull the two vehicles together firmly. That creates the hard dock, the secure, airtight seal. They've arrived.
10 hours in those so-cool suits. Getting them off must feel amazing.
Absolutely, a huge moment of relief. Then the less glamorous task of dealing with the used diaper.
The realities of spaceflight. Then into the comfy Captain America flight suit.
Which apparently gets tighter later as their spines elongate in weightlessness. A little bit of foreshadowing there.
But they can't just open the hatch yet, right?
No, first come the leak checks. About 2 hours to make absolutely sure the seal between Soyuz and ISS is perfect. Safety first.
And while they wait, the ISS crew is banging on the hatch.
Yeah, a friendly welcome from the other side. Terry Virts, Anton Shkaplerov, Samantha Cristoforetti, the existing crew.
All familiar faces to our astronaut, which must be nice.
Definitely helps with the transition. The astronaut notes the planned rotations and just how multi-skilled everyone needs to be up there now. Science, maintenance, medical, not just pilots.
Finally, hatches open. And that smell.
The smell space, yeah. Often described as burnt metal, ozone welding fumes. Very distinct. Likely residual outgassing and atomic oxygen interactions.
The greetings are jubilant, lots of hugs. And they go through the hatch together.
A nice touch, that show of solidarity, symbolizing the joining of the crews.
First order of business, try to call family back in Baikonur.
Right, but there are audio problems initially. Space comms aren't always perfect.
Then a tour. Moving into the U.S. segment, the astronaut notices the lights are dimmer.
Resource management. Power is precious. And our astronaut immediately thinks, okay, I can help improve this. Already thinking about the mission work.
But before work, some essential orientation, like the toilet.
Mastering the WHC, the waste and hygiene compartment, is day one critical knowledge. And a quick safety briefing, too. The dangers don't end at docking.
And then a celebration.
The traditional welcoming party in the Russian segment, barbecued beef, crab meat, even caviar, a taste of home to mark their arrival.
Finally, time to find their own space, the crew quarters or CQ.
Described as about the size of an old phone booth in Node 2. Clean and empty for now.
But not for long. It'll fill up with stuff over the year.
The reality of living somewhere long-term, and a new sleeping bag, which is nice, even if it won't get washed for a year.
Sleeping, though, that's another challenge.
Very difficult initially in weightlessness. Your body doesn't know which way is up, you just float.
And the cosmic flashes, little streaks of light.
Yeah, high-energy cosmic rays passing through the eyes or optic nerve. A constant reminder of the radiation environment outside the Earth's protection. Kind of alarming.
So alarming. A sleeping pill is needed for that first night.
Drifting off, knowing this is just night 1 of 340, it really grounds you in the scale of the mission ahead.
So wrapping this up, what an incredible journey we've followed. That surreal launch, the intense G-forces, the drama of the docking scare.
And the relief of arrival, followed immediately by the sensory strangeness of the ISS, the noise, the smell, the feeling of weightlessness.
It really paints a picture of the immense physical and mental challenges, but also the moments of connection and tradition.
Absolutely. What stands out, I think, and what's maybe worth pondering is just how adaptable humans are. We can train for the technical stuff, but thriving in such an alien environment requires this incredible resilience.
Yeah, that blend of extreme engineering and sheer human grit. So as you listen, what strikes you the most? Is it the raw danger of launch? The weirdness of space, smells and sounds, or perhaps just the everyday adjustments needed to live off-planet for a year?
It really makes you appreciate the complexity and the audacity of human spaceflight. Perhaps it sparks some curiosity to look more into the history or the ongoing science about how space affects us long-term.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive